Well, yesterday, a federal court in Boston issued an important decision that struck down the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. This 1996 law stated that no state or local government has to recognize a relationship between two people of the same sex, even if that couple is married in another state or country. The law actually goes a step further, officially defining marriage as between one man and one woman. Now, since its passage, many states have denied same-sex couples benefits under the law. And over the years, there have been a lot of legal challenges to this, and yesterday's decision may yet open the door for even more. Joining me to talk more about this is Ross Levi. He is the executive director for the Empire State Pride Agenda. Ross, thanks for your time.
Sure, good to be with you, Liz.
So this decision actually is fairly narrowly defined, and there's some question as to how much of an impact it will actually have on the states, because it did not specifically say that states were required to do anything. In fact, it actually almost, if I'm not mistaken, upheld states' rights in this particular issue.
It did come down very heavily on the states' rights side, but it is still an important decision because there are so many important federal benefits of marriage that are kept from same-sex married couples, including in places like Massachusetts and Connecticut, where you can get married. Literally 1,138 rights and responsibilities, really fundamental things like Social Security benefits, the ability to immigrate to this country, so many things that families rely on, and those are blocked from us now. And this decision opens the door for a couple that's been legally married in a state to have access to those.
So what might it mean in New York, where, as I'm sure most people will recall, the effort to push through a bill that would legalize same-sex marriage failed, with 8 Democrats voting with the Republicans back in December. So what might this mean in terms of redefining marriage, although obviously not making it completely legal in this state?
Right. Well, it's a good question. I mean, one thing it means for sure is when we do get the right to marry here in New York, that those federal benefits won't be blocked for us, which they would be as of today. So that's very significant. Because New York also now respects the legal marriages of same-sex couples who have gone to another place and gotten married, it's very interesting to see how this decision will play out, because basically what it says is the federal government must recognize the state law on this issue. Because New York is unique as being as probably the only state that doesn't marry same-sex couples but respects their marriages if married elsewhere, it'll be very interesting to see what the federal government does with that.
Well, do you expect then that there will be further challenges to this? I mean, I would expect there would be an appeal of the decision, but that there could be legal challenges that originate in New York based on the decision that we saw yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, but this is the very first level. You're absolutely right. It's just a trial court level decision. Very significant, very important. The judge said all the right things and understands that our families need these very basic protections, but it's far from the end of the fight. In many ways, it's the beginning.
Well, you know, what's interesting is that it's now heating up, this battle again in New York. And if you look at public opinion polls over time, public opinion has actually moved towards being in favor of same-sex marriage. And yet the issue again came up just recently in Albany when you saw language that was removed from the revenue bill that would have actually recognized same-sex couples when they filed their tax returns at the state tax department, because Senator Ruben Diaz is so vehemently opposed and wouldn't have voted for the revenue bill. That language was actually removed.
Sure. I mean, it's actually very ironic in a year that we were successful in getting laws to make sure that we're able to adopt children together, that we're able to make medical decisions for each other, loving couples when one of the members can't, that we also had this one-man veto from Ruben Diaz of this very basic fundamental idea that we should be able to file jointly for income taxes, which, by the way, is a revenue producer in this state in most cases. For most people, that isn't a benefit financially. It actually costs you more. It's actually an example of one of those responsibilities we want. All we're looking for is to be treated equally.
So this political, when I said that this issue is heating up politically, also today we have this story in the New York Times. It's a pretty fascinating story that questions the commitment on the part of Andrew Cuomo, the Attorney General, who is, of course, the Democratic designee for governor, to gay marriage. And he had recently said that he believes not only that he is a supporter, but he believes actually he could get this passed in the first year if he was, in fact, elected. Now, that's something that Eliot Spitzer said, too. too, and that's something obviously Governor Patterson tried, and he said this was the great civil rights battle of his time. Now, your organization is defending Cuomo. In fact, you posted a video, and in it he said it was actually the same day that he announced his candidacy for governor that he sent this video to you, and he said that actually he was committed. He also made the civil rights argument, and I mean, do you believe him when he says these kind of things? I mean, do you feel that he actually means it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the New York Times article does not match with the Pride Agenda's experience in working with the Attorney General. First of all, I do think it's symbolic how forceful and clear he was that he was in support of marriage equality and the Transgender Civil Rights Bill and the Dignity for All Students Act. That would be significant in of itself for an elected official, a candidate, to be that clear and that forceful that early on in their campaign. But it's additionally significant because those aren't just empty words. Those are backed up by deeds. Over a number of years now as Attorney General, whenever Andrew Cuomo has been needed to do something around LGBT equality and justice, he's basically been there, whether that was defending cases for marriage equality and the respect of marriages that we talked about earlier, whether that was making sure that employers were applying the law correctly and making sure that transgender people, transgender employees, there was a retailer here in New York that was discriminating against transgender people and not letting them wear the correct clothes for their gender identity. For all kinds of issues, making sure that the state civil rights laws applies to schools. He's always been there. In a way, in fact, frankly, that not all attorney generals always have.
Do you think that he's gone through a metamorphosis when it comes to LGBT issues? Because this same story references during a campaign, a very bitter campaign between his father, Mario Cuomo, that he ran, and former mayor, New York City Mayor Ed Koch. There was, right at the end, a very nasty flyer that went up that said, "Vote for Cuomo, not the homo," which was, questioning Mayor Koch's sexuality. And Mayor Koch asked about this, and now supports Andrew Cuomo, actually, but asked whether he believes Andrew Cuomo, that he wasn't behind it, said he just doesn't know.
I've been at this work for over a decade, but I haven't been at it for 3 decades. And to some degree, to look back that far tells you how far you have to go. It's certainly not a metamorphosis in the 13 years I've been doing this work at all. Quite the contrary, as I was alluding to. These are not Johnny-come-lately comments, and these aren't comments without deeds behind them. I certainly wouldn't call it some sort of campaign season epiphany. This is very much based on a consistent record that we've seen from the Attorney General in his work.
Do you not think that it could be troublesome for him, because he is trying to paint himself almost as a post-partisan kind of a guy. He's very strong on these social issues in a democratic sense, but in a fiscal sense he's trying to appeal to Republicans, and he talks about actually being an independent, really sort of apolitical, if you will, even though he is so steeped in democratic politics. Will coming out very strongly for gay marriage actually hurt him, endanger him with Republican voters?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I mean, clearly there are parts of the state and certain demographics where this plays differently, but New Yorkers understand equality. They understand fairness, and they understand that their gay and lesbian neighbors are just looking to protect their families. We're not looking to demean or diminish their marriages. We're not saying anything about what churches have to do. We're looking for that plain old marriage license that everyone else gets when they walk into City Hall, plunk down their money, and say, I'm in love with this person, and I'm committed to them, and I want to be with them, and I want to form a family with them. That actually isn't, at its core, an incredibly controversial idea. And as you alluded to, the public opinion polls are showing that.
Regarding the gay marriage battle, actually,